Thank you everyone for joining. So I will introduce everyone. Tonight we are doing marketing for professional service brands. So together with GA, and thank you all for coming. So my name is Christopher Melotti and I run a creative content marketing agency, and we deal with copywriting and help make words have an impact.
Hello, my name's Ariel Bowers. I am the creative producer of Two Giraffes. We are a full-service video production and animation studio in Sydney.
Good evening, my name's Kristen Hancock and I'm from Swatch Branding and Design Studio, and we create profound brands for business services companies.
Hi everyone, I'm Mike Sandys, Managing Director of Oddball Marketing. We're an action-orientated marketing agency delivering leads through websites, social media, search engines and email.
Thank you, fantastic. So tonight, what we're going to do is be going through quite a few points tonight. So basically, we're going to be hearing from us about how we work with professional services, how we help people through the common challenges that professional services face, both Australia and in abroad. We're going to look at examples of a case study that we've done in the legal industry, and we're going to be looking at how to help your brand stand out in the professional services space using marketing. All right, so I'm going to start by discussing the biggest marketing challenges for professional services. So when we talk about professional services, we're dealing with the non-tangibility of particular the services that we're selling. Everything from legal to marketing to finance, even design. We're dealing with a non-tangible product. And so this is where we often experience a lot of challenges. So I'm going to throw to the panel and we're going to discuss the current challenges that this kind of industry faces. So Ariel, do you want to give us a little bit more information about how the non-tangibility and how video impacts, and we'll go down the line from there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was even going to look at the next one, the lack of differentiation.
Go for it.
Well, when you're looking at services, a lot of times when you're going from website to website, video to video even, they're all starting to look exactly the same. And here you are trying to research a brand to go with, and when they're all looking the same, how do you know which one to pick? How do you know where to go? And so I think a huge problem within the services industry is really being able to hone in on, their unique point of view and displaying that through video and through all the different factors of marketing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, from a branding perspective, I definitely concur with what Ariel said, that the key aspect that we face is a lack of differentiation. We also identify a lot within this professional services space that a lot of businesses lack the courage to be specific.
That's a good point.
And to really identify with a particular customer or audience, because they're nervous that they might exclude. And that can restrict in the way that you brand and the way that you communicate with a certain audience or customer base. So we see that a lot. We also often see businesses that are finding it difficult to communicate or identify their own value proposition and really articulate that to the customer base. So that clearly impacts how we are then able to assist them to brand, but it would come a lot back to yourself, Chris, in terms of the media messaging.
Yeah.
And then the final piece is a really exciting aspect for us as an agency, in that we often see a lot of firms really struggle with the emotional connection. Yeah. Now when you have a product, you tend to have something where you can quickly talk about the features of a particular product, about why it's better than the competition, why it adds more value to you, why it's priced at this point. With a service, it's so intangible until you've experienced the service.
Right.
So a lot of the way that we engage with an audience has to emanate from the perception of the brand, and then the tone of voice and the way that you're communicated with before you experience it. So and that's why for businesses like our own that specialise in this area, it's really exciting, because we get to really look behind who is delivering the service, how do they deliver it, what audience are they targeting, are they being specific, etc. And we can talk more about the emotional aspect.
Humanizing it, right?
Exactly.
It's humanizing it.
It is. That's
I
a
think
great
a lot
point.
of people that are probably watching tonight probably have this same experience where they're a professional service and they don't have something to photograph or talk about or like promote, and like say Apple does, and so the challenge that we see both in ourselves and our industries and also in a lot of these industries where they are service based is this challenge of how do we take our customers on this journey and make them trust us? Mike, do you have anything from an agency perspective?
Well, I think in that regard, with all of the advertising and the assets and collateral that you guys you put together for it, it becomes very challenging because it's how do you present that? With Apple's products and stuff, you can put it nice and shiny sitting on the bench
nice
there,
box.
or it looks great if someone's picking up the phone and sort of using it. But with an intangible product, how do we show that? Do we show the service? Do we show the people in pain? Do we show the solution? What part? And that's where I think a lot of the business that we see really struggle with trying to work out where should we communicate to them through, say, their buying journey, and do they do it through their website? Do they do it on their own collateral? And I think that's one of the sort of underlying challenges is being unable to articulate, what it is that they actually do and the problems they solve. And that's what leads to, I think, a lack of differentiation across everyone's services, because they all go, we provide legal services. We help people,
we provide accounting
deserve.
services.
Yeah.
And they see what other people are doing, and they're like, I'll just do that same thing, and I'll do what that other person said, and they get nervous about doing something new and copycat of it, and then all of a sudden things start looking all the same.
And this is where it becomes dangerous, and I'm sure that people can relate. Is the problem what we face with professional services is if we can't differentiate and we can't prove to people that we are different, what happens? We fight over price.
Yes.
And so even if you are a superior provider or you provide a premium service, and I'm sure that there's many people listening right now that are going, oh my gosh, this is our problem, is that when you look identical to all of your customers, your clients will come to you, they'll open 5 browsers, they'll have you and 4 other competitors, and they'll call you and say, can you do this for this amount? No? Okay, can you do it for this amount? And so this is where I feel professional services can relate to the biggest challenge. Is anyone else?
Storytelling, brand story, brand narrative, right? It's there's a reason that company was started. There was a reason they said, we can do this space better. There's going to be something about that brand, that the reasoning, the driving force behind it, and utilizing that story and really putting it out there to the customer through brand, through video is going to be that differentiation, right?
The biggest thing we see is commoditization.
Yes.
You basically take it and you say, that's the same product, everyone's offering the same thing, what's the difference? And the only differentiator is price, and it's a race to the bottom.
And it happens in every industry. Like it's financial services, legal, even marketing. We see it all ourselves. And so this is the key: is that we need to help people understand that marketing, and like Ariel was saying with the journey and the storytell, is where we need to be taking more of a proactive approach as service providers, because Australia is very service provider orientated. And as an industry, if we are looking all the same, then we can't differentiate. We get that commoditization. We get that where we've got nothing else to say but here's the price. And so that's what we're here tonight to discuss, is how we can use marketing to really separate ourselves. So anything else on?
I think the key one for us is to Kristen's point before, where if you look at courage. Because whenever we're talking with businesses, they'll come in and they say, look, I want more business. I need more leads. How do we get the phone ringing? How do we get more inquiries coming through? And when we go through and try and find out about their audience and their service and what differentiates them, and who do they want to attract, it's anyone and everyone. That's the default thing. It's like anyone, we just want more business, whatever we can do,
the courage to be more specific.
That's it, and so a lot of the time that we spend is really honing in on the exact audience that they do the best job for, that they can be a bit of a leader in, and that's where we focus. So that's what we see as a huge issue.
Yeah, because you know, mostly with a small business, you get nervous. You go, oh, I want to make sure I'm capturing everyone. What if I make it niche and then I miss out on Sally A and Susie B? But really, when it's too general, then no one's connecting, and you're losing everyone.
Yeah.
Right? So that's such a really important part of
and
this.
courage. Like for me, as a copywriter and a content producer, this is another thing that it's they will say, we like what this brand does, copy them. and I'll say, but then you are literally them.
Yeah.
And so it's very important that, you know, as service brands, we have to have the courage to say, this is where we want to play. This is what we want to sound like. This is what we want to brand like. And so this is what we're going to address.
Yeah, let's go into
tonight.
the
So
fun,
let's get
positive
started.
bit.
So-
Done with the negative.
So the next slide, so we're going to talk about is what professional services should be doing. And so, let's open the floor. Let's just sort of have at it. So, Mike, do you want to start with what professional services, what we should be doing in this space to really capture that attention?
Well,
Sorry, I put you first. We'll throw to Kristen after, I promise.
yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many different areas to sort of focus on, but if we started off with just differentiation, which is kind of what we were already talking about, so we kind of sort of jumped the gun a little bit, but it is that point of everyone's going after anyone and everyone, and the more you can kind of get focused on a particular niche area or you know, focus on a specific audience, the more you can do that, the more you can then refine your messaging about the specific pains and problems that that audience is having, which then means that all of your content and all of the advertising that we do to attract people, we're honing in on that exact problem that that person is having.
Yeah.
Or if we're using things like social media and stuff, we can really target that exact audience because we know who they are.
Yeah.
You know, if you just go, okay, I just want, you know, kind of anyone in Australia. Okay, great. You know, that's a very big campaign and that's a very expensive campaign.
Yeah.
But if people can get a little bit more refined about it, whether it's geographically, demographically, if they can just start to narrow in on that particular audience, that allows us to create a much more refined campaign that'll deliver.
So you say, get niche. Get niche, be brave to get niche.
100%, yeah. It's to identify an audience or a persona and really hone in on that person, and that's who you want to be speaking to the entire time.
Well, I mean, from a video perspective, it's all about telling a story, right? And yeah, exactly. And you know, a company, you don't, even if it's B2B, there's people behind a company. It's actually human to human, even if it's company to company. And I think a lot of people try to just push their brand. And you know, you don't connect, you can't hug a company, right? You wanna think about the person behind it, and you wanna be thinking about who's gonna be actually receiving this message and make sure everything's targeted to them and that you're really telling your story from a humanistic perspective, that they're actually getting to know you as a brand, as a person behind it. So the story, I think, is such an essential part of it.
And Kristen, how does branding sort of tie into this?
Well, this is fundamental.
Everyone stand back.
So look, for us at Fontaine Swatch, the first thing we ask them to do is exactly what people have been expressing so far, which is to really, let's identify and understand who your audience is. I think we talked about that and we've probably been over that, but really be as specific as you can about that audience. The second thing, we need to identify what is the need or the problem that you are solving for that audience, and clearly articulate that. The third is, when you are solving that need or problem, what is the value proposition that you are giving? Now, when you're doing a value proposition, there's usually two aspects to it. It's either you've got a technical advantage or a process-driven advantage that you can talk through that value proposition that sets you apart. But for the majority of service firms, it's actually about the way that you execute your service. Is it fast? Is it really heavily engaged? Is it agile? Is it actually that you're really cost effective? You know, there's a lot of services businesses that are out there that pride themselves on being a low-cost service provider, and that's an absolutely valid marketing strategy.
Actually,
to
that's
adopt.
a good point. We should should say more about that. Is that it's okay to be
it's okay to be a low-cost provider.
That is your niche.
Fine.
So long as you aren't a low-cost and a high-cost provider, and then everyone gets confused.
Exactly.
Sorry, I didn't cut you off, but I think that's a really
absolutely.
good point
And
to get
that's
across.
that understanding what your value proposition is, so that you can articulate it. From a branding perspective, we take and absorb all of those aspects of your business and your brand, and our role is to create, through brand, to create a preference for your service over the competition.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is really understand it, intertwine your value proposition, and then we've got to create the emotional connection. Now this is as I said, this is why we love branding with services businesses, because it's about the emotional expression that we can convey through your colour palettes, through your fonts, through the elements and the imagery that we use, because as soon as somebody has that first impression, they automatically get a sense of this is the type of service I'm going to receive.
I think we all love doing
brand.
services for that, right?
Exactly.
Because we
Yes.
have to, how do you turn this service into this
Experience.
experience? So you really have to go out of the box every time and you think, what does this mean? What does this entail? How should I feel? What should they react to this afterwards? What kind of story are you building around this service? And with that, what's so important about that though is not just once you create that, it's the funnel, right? Chris, I think you could talk a lot about this, is once you create that, you're going to have a different, you're going to go a different
message for each step.
For each step of the way, and it's important that you're hitting the right steps.
Yeah, and that's a big thing that I think professional services don't do, is that even when we define the customer, where are they in the journey? You know, like if it's basically they don't know about your brand or your service, then how are you educating them? How are you making them aware? And then if they're further down where they know of your brand but they know about every other brand that you relate to, how are you making yourself relevant and valuable? And then further along, when they've purchased from you, how are you using content to add more value, that they stay around? And this is very important for professional services, is that it's not just enough to just go, hey, we're good, or we're a good option. You know,
surprisingly, everybody says that.
everyone. And so it's also about capitalizing on making sure that you're addressing your customer at each point in their journey.
Yeah.
Because that's, and I don't need to tell you anything, because if you actually think about how you consume, and everyone consumes services, like think about your accountant or anyone that you do, you know, it's not a, you know, you've probably experienced the same sort of marketing where you've picked your accountant because they've addressed a particular concern better than others. And so this is what we need to be doing. And everyone be thinking about your professional services when we're talking about these kind of things. Are you doing these steps, or are you falling victim to that price commodity challenge?
So we like to think of it we use 3 descriptions. We say, are you unique?
Yep.
Are you relevant?
Yes.
And are you engaging?
Perfect.
So if you're doing those 3, then you are conveying your value proposition to your audience. If you're not, you're getting lost in the noise and lost in the competition.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. So
Yes.
before everyone's like, yes. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the 7 marketing mistakes that are common for professional services, because these are the 7 that we regularly see, and they are costing these businesses and these brands a lot. In reputation, in conversions and everything. Yeah. So what we'll do is we're going to go through all 7, and then we'll address the problem and then go to a solution, and we'll talk from there. So the first challenge that professional businesses,
do you want to
professional
talk about
services,
the survey, or?
Oh yes, sorry. So we promised that we would do a case study to illustrate these. So I'll let Kristen.
Yeah, look, so exciting. We at Swatch, we actually undertook a survey recently where we surveyed a little over 100 small to medium legal firms within the professional services sector. And we looked at a range of different aspects, predominantly from a branding perspective, but also a lot of aspects regards to the remainder of the panel. So when we assessed them for their brand. We looked at the colour palettes that they were using. We looked at the fonts that they were adopting. We also looked at the elements and the imagery that they used. But most specifically, the bit that really captured our attention was we looked a lot from a distance through their websites, and we understood and took a view on the tone that they were adopting through their websites and their marketing, and also the messaging that they were undertaking, and whether that, from our professional perspective, was actually relative and engaging to their audience.
Yeah.
But I think what's important here is to state, because we've gone through this, we've had a chat about it, and we all said, you know, this relates to all our
It's-
clients,
yeah.
all professional services. So even though we'll go through this as a case study,
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can all relate to this, but at least you get a good example of how it relates to
Yeah.
law firms. But it's really relatable.
It's
against
relative. So we ended up
all
choosing,
professional services.
we had to choose a particular sector,
Yeah.
and it just happened to be law firms. But as you say, Ariel, the conclusions that we were able to draw and the feedback that we were seeing come back through the survey, it was actually relevant.
Yeah,
It's
applicable
what-
to-
it's-
yeah.
It's what we see in every professional services industry, and that we all the aspects that we all grapple with as well.
Yeah.
So we've summarised into 7. So 7. So the first common mistake that a lot of professional service businesses make is that they don't make their brand relatable to target customers. So, Kristen, do you want to start by discussing the stats and
Yeah,
going
a few of
from
the
there?
stats. So one thing to note, we will actually distribute a
The
slide
slides.
deck
Yep, yes.
to
That was the
everybody.
technical difficulty.
Yeah. They will
to
do.
everybody that attends tonight. So feel free to read through that. But what we found with the legal services profession, not surprisingly, we saw a lot of similarities.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we identified that about 84% of those businesses that we looked at had a colour palette that included blue,
Yep.
white,
Yep.
grey
Yeah.
and black.
Black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see it right now.
And that was it. So that's 84% of them.
Yeah. Which is significant. It's a lot.
Really
8 or
significant.
9
When
out
you're
of
looking
10.
Yeah.
across an entire spectrum, so we were yes, they were the small to medium market, but they were servicing all different customer bases. We had construction firms, we had divorce lawyers, we had commercial, we had property, but all of the colour palettes,
Yeah. the
blue,
same.
white, grey, black. We also identified, when we looked at their fonts, particularly their logo fonts, we identified that 60% of the fonts used were 10 fonts.
Yeah.
So to put that in my world and my perspective, there's thousands.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's thousands of fonts that creative agencies can choose from. The largest proponent that we saw was actually Baskerville.
Yeah.
Baskerville's a beautiful font. It was
Yeah.
actually it was used by the Bank of England. It's commonly used within professional services, common more towards the financial services sector. It's a very formal, staid font, so not surprising that it appeals to lawyers. But that was nearly 15% were using that font. So when we're talking about trying to identify with an audience and be seen as different, unique,
Yeah.
aligned and engaging, if one in every 6 or 7 fonts is the same in your logo font, then you're
And
really
fonts
not
have
achieving.
so much personality
They-
behind them. Oh my gosh. If you ever want to just see that, if you change a font on a website, it just instantly
everything.
changes everything about
Instantly
it.
changes your
Instantly,
tone.
yeah.
Instantly, your
And people
Yeah,
might be
yeah.
thinking, well, hold on, what does a font mean? Well, if you think about it, if you go to your website and then look up all your competitors' websites, and they are literally the same colours and the same fonts, you think of it from a customer perspective. They're going to say, which website was I on? Who was I paying?
Yeah.
And this is a real danger that every professional service industry has, is that if you look like your competitors, then that's what you're going to give. Mike, Mike does a lot of websites and branding as well. And what do you think about this?
Well, that's it's an interesting one with the whole blue.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm interested in Kristen's thoughts on why everyone kind of keeps
Safe, isn't it?
keeps
Safe.
on
Well,
blue.
it's safe,
What's the-
authority, it's trust.
Authority, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Which, in fairness, in the legal industry, kind of does
Yeah.
relate
Yeah,
what
well-
they're trying to do.
Yeah, from an independent perspective, if there was one law firm out there and they came to us and said, we would love to brand, we're the only law firm, we would probably come up with
Yes, the blue, what they did.
white, black and grey, and we would probably, do something similar to a Baskerville. But when there's a lot of
And there is.
competition and you have to be unique, then you have to move beyond what is the stock standard answer of
Yeah.
I'm going to be blue because I'm wearing a blue suit and a blue tie and
And I think, and to Chris's point before, we all do that, don't we, when we go and do a Google search, which we love from a point of view of generating leads. But the immediate thing that we all do is, you open up 5 tabs.
Yeah.
Top 5 results, there you
Sorry.
go.
Like, I don't want people to do it to me, but I do it.
see which ones load up quick enough, and then
Yeah.
you sort of jump onto them and have a quick look and go, nope, nope,
Yeah.
nope. Oh, hang on. This
Yeah,
is
The initial impression.
Interesting, a bit different.
And so if you're seeing that kind of blue kind of same thing over and over again, and quite often, which I think we'll go into later on with the imagery and stuff,
Yeah.
it's just this very bland sort of approach, you just straight away you switch off.
Yeah.
And for us, that's devastating because we do all this work to generate traffic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Leads
then
coming
you
through
lose
to a
it
site,
there.
and then it's just lost, and so conversion rates drops, and that impacts our performance, which is something we want to absolutely avoid. So the more we can kind of then embrace a unique identity.
This goes back to your niche, right?
Yeah.
So once you figure out that niche, you can start asking yourself, is my main audience male or female? Am I going for a playful tone or a serious tone?
Exactly.
Do I want to be city specific, or do I want to be a global company? You know, do I want to be seen as cost effective, or do I want to be seen as high end? And once you can start deciding all these different factors, that plays directly
Exactly,
into your brand
branding.
colors.
And just to talk about, you know, whether you're playful or formal, one of the other things that we picked up was about the vast majority of fonts that we saw within the websites, around about 80% of them, were from two font families. They were for Open Sans and Helvetica. Surprise, surprise. But the challenge, and once again, that, you know, perfectly respectable fonts and extremely widely used, but they're very casual in their approach because they're on the websites. But most of the fonts that we were seeing in logos are quite formal.
See, that's a good
Yeah.
So you've got this disconnect between
Yeah.
the brand is saying we're formal, we're trustworthy, we're authoritative. The website's saying, yeah, but do you want to go down to the pub and have a beer? Let's be really cool and trendy and hang out. And it's like, guys.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't Comic Sans.
I mean, and I have to say from the video photography perspective, also what kills me is just seeing the same stock imagery on every single website. The moment, first off, you're using stock imagery, mostly a lot of people that are watching this are in Australia or in different countries around here. It's mainly American stock footage. And you can tell that it's not regional specific. And not only that, how can you go delve into that niche and your audience if you're just using the most general? It's stock footage because it's as general as
Your
you can
competitor's
get.
got the same team as you do in the photo, you know?
Yes, I've seen it. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's in the
where
medical
I've had
industry
the
a
multiple
lot.
tabs open, and they legitimately have the same stock imagery up, and it's really not much of a cost to even get a photographer out for a day just to get actual images of your team and your services, and you know, capturing you with clients. And that alone can make a massive, massive difference in differentiating yourself, because most websites use stock imagery.
Yeah.
And I think
it's a sorry.
No, you go.
I mean, the key there in that, what does that do to your business, and what does it do when people hit your site or want to sort of look to engage you? The biggest thing about seeing stock imagery, and when they can recognize that it's stock imagery, it just straight away undermines trust.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So everything that you now look at with that business, you just sort of think, hang on, what they're telling me, is that genuine?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and that's a really good point, because I know that the first question we're going to get right now is, do people notice? Because that's the first thing they'll go, oh, those four are being really pedantic, right? and so for people listening and watching, the first question we'll get right now is does this all matter? It definitely, it 100% does. Your customers, they instinctively put pieces together when they go to your website, when they listen to your team, when they look at your photos, when they watch your video. And so what ends up happening is people go, oh, that doesn't matter. But they do. People will look at your website and they'll get the impression, this looks playful, but their font is serious. And then when people get confused, what do they do? Leave. That's what they do. And unfortunately, it's a very naive position. Unfortunately, a lot of service positions find themselves in, is that they go, no, it's fine. Like blues, the same blue as our competitor, not a problem. And it's not us being pedantic. It really is. And if you don't believe us, go and look at a service that you're not involved in. Like go and if you're not in finance, look at your finance person. Or if you're not in marketing, look at an agency. If you look at the way that they're all branding, if you come across the same thing, or if you really look into your website rather than just subconsciously, if you look at it, you can go, oh, this is actually like giving me the wrong impression.
Yeah.
Or I've saw and medical is another one that just have medical services, is that same stock footage everywhere.
Yeah.
They've got all the words saying we are professional, we're unique, we do this, and then they see the same stock footage as other brands.
Yeah.
And then immediately the customer will, or the patient or the doctor will literally go, that's weird. And it makes an immediate impression. And so all these little elements that we're being so pedantic about, they add up. Because, if your brand's inconsistent with your message, which is inconsistent with your font, which is all these sort of elements, they immediately speak volumes.
And I think what Mike said is key to all this is trust. Because when you're looking at a service-based, we're services, right? It's all about trust, because they're not just getting a product. They're getting involved in your service or purchasing your service. So if you're already starting out with that kind of distrust of that, who are they behind the veil, right? If they're just using stock imagery, if they're just using stock this, it doesn't set you up. It doesn't give you a good foundation for your brand.
I think you mentioned it earlier, Ariel, where you look at when you're dealing with a service, who are you dealing with? You're dealing with people.
Yeah.
And it's a relationship that's occurring here.
Point.
And that's a critical factor when you say, with a product, you can put up with a bad service attendant and whatever, because you go, look, fine, I'll deal with that.
I'm getting
the product,
or a car,
and it'll be exactly what I need, and so that's all right. I can put up with those sorts of things. In service, no, you are who I'm dealing with. While you might be providing a bit of an outcome, at the end of the day, I've got to have a dialogue with you. I've got to work with you, and I'm not going to deal with you if I can't trust you.
True.
Yeah, like real estate, same thing. Every service, all those kind of services.
I blows my mind when I go on a services website and they don't have actual video testimonials. If they don't have brand awareness videos.
I'm trying.
You've convinced us. You've absolutely convinced
I have to
us.
do this. This one is online to do this.
Because you want to actually see a person.
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't think there's anything more powerful than a personal testimonial by video, actually. After having them, having experienced them, where we've received them, it's so powerful. And we've actually started putting them in presentations. So we
I did one
send,
for you.
exactly. We send proposals, and then we have clickable links for clients to actually experience what it's like to work with Font and Swatch from one of our customers.
It creates
so strong.
Much credibility and so much trust. When it's just a written testimonial, and a lot of people don't even get the photo of the person, it's just their name. It's like, how do you trust that? Oh, I don't know if they wrote that. I don't know who that person is. But when you get to actually see them on camera and they say, X, Y, and Z company did this, and I can't believe the amazing job. You can see it. You can see how excited they were. And that right away builds so much credibility. But that's also why you should have a brand awareness video, because it's all about your story and your people and putting the human, you're actually putting those individuals in front of the camera and saying, this is who you're dealing with, and instantly creates that connection and builds that trust.
I think your point though with testimonials too, just for everyone to sort of remind ourselves that there's different levels, and so I think if you looked at it from a video point of view, that is gold standard. If you can get a good quality video testimonial, you can't beat it from my point of view, especially when we're doing advertising and look at conversion rates. Like, people will watch that and they'll really connect with it, and they'll you don't get much more authentic or genuine than what you can present on video, but it's not always that easy to get. And so so that everyone doesn't look at it and go, oh great, I can't get that, oh well, I won't bother. Having testimonials is still very helpful. It's social proof. It's that sort of people have experienced your product or service. It's a little bit more challenging these days in the sense of standing out, because there are so many different review services and stuff. So we're seeing more and more testimonials out there. And so you start to kind of go, oh, can I trust it? Can I not?
Still better than not having it.
Is absolutely. If you don't have any, then people are going to look at you and go, well, hang on a second, not one good customer can kind of say something nice about you. Okay, hang on, this is even worse.
I mean, I don't like promoting anything outside of video, because you could do this as a video. But I think if you have to do written testimonials, doing a case study around it is very important.
Agreed.
So you have that written testimonial, but then you explain how you actually help that client, what services they went after, what their pain points were, and then how you solve them. And then you see the testimonial, and it makes it all more tangible, and it really gives that face, but we also could do that in video, then it's even more
But
powerful.
It comes back to the why. And the why is when we're a professional service or when you're a professional service brand, it's an experience. And people are reluctant to go with you unless you explain how you do help them. So good with this one?
There is only one other point. I think people need to be aware that there's as much that a human will absorb subconsciously as they will consciously. So, and when you look at your own brand or when you're looking at another professional service, you'll absorb a lot consciously about what it is, but then what is going on in your subconscious, that's what picks up all the inconsistencies. So you may not initially notice it and see it, but where I was talking about the difference in fonts or the sameness in colours, you might scan through things and go, oh, I didn't really notice that. But your subconscious has picked it up. And then when you come to make a decision on which professional service you choose, all of those little pieces of the puzzle are just adding up. And then it plays a big influence on it. And I think people should be aware that's why we talk so much about
all these
aspects.
little bits.
It's all these little pieces because humans are humans at the end of the day.
If you want to read more, read the Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, and it basically captures that exact point where in just an absolute snapshot, we just get this subconscious. Our subconscious works so heavily at understanding things that actually within a split second, it will make a better choice than what we will consciously do.
That's a good point. Yeah. Actually, there was one more that I wanted to mention is that from this case study, we found that law firms were branding for other lawyers. And this is a mistake that a lot of professional services make as well, is that we write to basically ourselves rather than, it happens all the time.
That one forever.
Right? And think about your own brand right now, is your website written for, and just because this is a case study about lawyers, is that a lot of brands, professional services do this, is that jargon gets used and it's like, this is what we want to display to almost our competitors rather than our customers. And it brings us back to that courage element where do we have the courage to say, we're not going to be like every other service agency that says, this is how we talk. Is it, can we say, look, we understand our customers don't talk about superannuation all the time, or they don't talk about, all that. And so is it okay to us to just directly talk to our customers so they get it? And this is something, Ariel...
we deal with this all the time. And I'll have
script writing.
Video script writing, I'll have clients come to me and say, oh, we're really nervous about doing this video because you're not going to understand it. So how are you going to do the video? And I say,
that's the problem.
Well, if we don't understand it, how is your audience going to understand it? And it's that big moment. It's a light bulb moment for them going, oh, yeah, that's true.
And also, how are you going to hook them in as well?
Yeah,
it's not just, hey, this is about superannuation, and they'll go, it's about, being bold enough to say, okay, how can we relate this to your lifestyle or something that you get?
Yeah, it's exactly. It's you need to remember that you're in this day in and day out. You understand all the jargon. You understand how exciting this product is. You know how life-changing it is. You're like, why aren't people getting this, right? So it's really good to just step into your client's shoes and say, what are they thinking about? What are they worried about day to day? And how can you capture them through that, right?
Big time.
And making sure what you're putting out there is relatable to the audience you're going after. And that's essential.
I scare clients daily with my writing because what I'll do is they'll say, here's the message, right? But being scared I think is a good thing. It's because I will say, okay, this is how I would communicate this landing page, or this is how we should write your socials. And they'll go, but we don't, that's not like, we can't write like that. And I say, well, hold on, wait a minute. Think about your customer. And they'll go, oh. And I did this for an interior designer company recently, is that they said, we do interior design. This is, we want to do 3D modeling. And they said, we tell all of our clients about 3D modeling. And I said, think about your customer right now, because this is how you call 3D modeling. What does a customer think? And they said, we're thinking about a home. And I said, think about what they actually want from this service. They want to live in the home before they actually build the home. And they were like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. And I was like, yes, because they never would have thought of it that way. They just thought 3D modeling, we do 3D modeling. But really what it is we can show you your home in digital space that you can interact with before we go ahead.
Clients don't care about the time or money you spent putting that product together to
No.
create the 3D modeling and all the tech
They don't want
behind
to
it.
know, but they shouldn't.
They shouldn't need to.
They shouldn't need to. They want
That's
to know
not
how
their
it's going to
issue.
serve
Yeah.
them. And that's what's important to put out there. That's such a important
Oh, big time. And they were all
But I
like,
think we can stay on this one.
oh, yeah, sorry. Yes, I agree. Ariel's like,
And this is the whole panel. This is the whole panel.
Well, the other thing though with the content side of things in particular is, and talking about storytelling, is that you can start off at a sort of a higher level, easier to digest, so that it appeals to everyone or appeals to kind of the core people you're trying to talk to. But with different services, like we have some clients, like particularly engineering companies, where they go, well, the person who's buying our service or our products is another engineering firm, and so they want specific details.
But that's okay.
And they
And then that's good.
and that's where you can then have that information in there, but it's not what you have scattered throughout the whole place.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And there's
You know,
also a
like
point
connect.
on the customer journey when they want to test your expertise. So there's the initial convey where you're trying to convey this is what it's like, this is the emotional response that you'll receive by working with us, these are the values that we adhere to, this is the experience you'll have. And that can actually be quite a high level, perceptive storytelling experience. But then as they move closer to, yes, we're going to buy, the technical side can really come in where you can show, we do back this up with a lot of technical knowledge.
you have to earn that trust.
Yeah,
first to get
absolutely.
there. Are we all good? We're really passionate. Yes. Okay. So, the second mistake that professional service brands often make is that a lack of unique tone and personality. Now, Kristen, do you want to talk through some of these stats?
Yeah. Look, absolutely. And I think we've probably covered a lot of what's on this slide in terms of one of the things that we experienced within assessing, particularly on the websites for these law firms, was sameness.
Yeah.
So, if that's a word, but they were very much so. Their tone was very similar. The way that they express themselves, the language they use. Lawyers love them, absolutely love them to death. But they love copy, and a lot of it. So they tend to write a lot for themselves, thinking that that's what the customer needs.
Yeah.
As opposed to really understanding, well, the customers, and they're not educated in law.
No.
They haven't done the significant university
of
time
study and reading.
reading. That's what the lawyer actually has undertaken so that they can provide the service. The customer wants to know, do you practice the type of law I'm looking for? Do you provide a very good service? How can you now articulate how your value proposition is stronger than the other lawyers and why your service will work for me?
Yeah.
So what we found, it was concerning actually, what we found in terms of tone of voice. We found that only around 18% of the websites that we looked at really connected in a modern and really connected way with their audience, which is less than 1 in 5, which is really concerning. The other side of it was even more concerning. Nearly 50% were either anonymous or really unconnected or unclear with their customer, and you could not understand from their branding perspective or their tone which customer base they were talking to.
Yeah.
So from a branding agency perspective, and then all of us, that's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
But most importantly, from a professional services perspective, it's a massive opportunity. Because if you do invest
if you do focus
in your brand, invest in the way that you present yourself, invest in understanding what need you're solving, what value proposition, making yourself unique, making yourself aligned and engaging, you're going to stand out.
Yeah.
You're going to be...
That's a good point I'll bring up is that, further to your point, is if you are a professional service brand that is saying my website isn't working and we only get leads through referrals, this is the problem.
Yeah.
Can I just say, this is probably what's happening, is your customer or your potential client is going to your website and going, I don't understand what this means, leave. And so you've got a probably high bounce rate. And sorry, I couldn't wait to say that because I thought this is how do we relate this to an audience? This is what's probably happening here.
Yeah.
And Mike, you do a lot of websites. Do you want to talk on on this?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So from
Sorry, I just stole it.
yeah, that's right. You stole my thunder. No, but seriously, when we look at advertising campaigns, when people come to us and say, "Oh, I need more leads and inquiries," the very first thing we do is look at their website.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, with all the advertising, whether it's through social media, whether we're doing work with their email, we're doing display ads, Google, we're ultimately sending them through to the website. And if their website can't convert, and if it looks generic, if it really doesn't speak to the audience, it doesn't focus on solving their problems, then we know we get really high bounce rates. And because we're on the hook from a performance with the campaign, we can't just send them to a landing page or a website that really isn't going to convert.
Yeah.
So our very first question and first thing that we do whenever we get a phone call, the first thing we'll do is jump on their website and have a bit of a look. Before we've even finished the phone call, we'll be like, okay, we can help you. It looks like you've got a good foundation here. Or actually, we've got a little bit of work that has to be done before we can really get a campaign working for you, because we're just going to burn money sending them to what you've got at the moment.
And on what you're saying, it's really exciting that you're a very referral-based business, and you think, that's why.
That's good.
However, you could be a referral-based business and
get leads from your website.
From your website.
Yeah.
So, it's actually about realizing that you could do both.
Yeah.
And
you should
setting
do
yourself
both.
up for success for both channels of leads.
Absolutely.
I'm mindful of time. So that was Willem.
Okay.
So the third problem that Ariel's going to jump on this one, I think, majorly, is that they don't use video content. And this is something that, as Ariel has already said, is that video allows you more insight than a lot of different media. So Ariel, do you want to jump in?
Well, to go on to our law firm case study that we're discussing, essentially, only 26% of law firms are using video in their marketing and on their website, which is just really sad.
It's a missed opportunity.
It's an
opportunity, isn't it? It's a massive
well, actually, if you turn it around, it's a huge opportunity for you to go out there and to create video for your campaign. And look, those are quite low numbers for law firms, but if you look at stats around the board, video is not being used enough for the fact that video is how everyone wants to engage with companies these days. Now, the one thing I do want to say, though, is that 62% of users are likely to get negative perceptions if it's a poorly done video. So it is a mix of, it's important to get video out there, but you have to play back into who are you? Are you being seen as a luxurious, high-end, high-cost style company? Because if you're throwing up an iPhone video that's poorly done, they're not going to see you in that direction. So it's important that once you get that brand story and that personality that you're putting through your website and through your colors and your logos and etc., is that needs to be the skeleton behind a video. And we always look, when we're doing a video together, the very first thing we do is, who are you as a brand? What is your tone of voice? How should someone perceive you when we're writing that script and creating that video story? And if you're wondering, where do I start? I just said, I think one of the key things that just helps you convert is the testimonials. You get a video testimonial on your site, and it just creates that credibility and trust. The other one is that brand awareness video. So it's actually looking at, representing who your brand is, showing some people from the office, having some interviews, talking about your overall brand narrative. That's really important so they can get a full sense of who you are. And when someone's looking at a website and there's all this text, or there's a 60-second video, you can keep them on there and they'll play that video. It is a very good way to get someone to understand your brand in a short amount of time. And you're engaging a professional video production company. They're gonna know how to, because I know it sounds impossible. You're like, how do I get my whole brand in 60 seconds? But you can, because you're using visuals, you're using VO, you're using music, and all that together can create that, encapsulate your brand within that time frame, which is really exciting. The other thing, though, that's very important is consistency with your video.
That was the things I was going to say, absolutely.
Yeah, so I know video is expensive. So what's important there is if you strategize ahead of time and you think, what do we need for the year, for the quarter? What new services are we putting out there? What are we launching? What's coming up, and what are we trying to sell? And if you do that ahead of time, you can actually film a lot of content at once, which saves you heaps of money. And then you can just edit or get the post-production company to edit the videos as you require them. So you might only need 1 or 2 days of filming, and you could get 6, 7 videos from there. Yeah.
I recorded all my service videos. I found that service videos was something that it was a big thing, because people often go, they get to your homepage, they get an impression of your site. I do this personally on my website, is that I have some text and then it goes into a video of me explaining what we do, how we work.
Yes.
And that, I know from the heat map, gets a lot of traction. People click on that button and they watch the video. But it's also then the next place they go to is my services, because they want to know, right, I'm good with Chris, I get the brand. Yeah. Now they want to look services, and we have a video there too.
Yes.
because then what happens is there's a way people can read my text, or they can watch me explain it. And I find that is another really powerful, like Ariel said, where do we start? Is a service video is actually a really good, compelling one too.
Amazing.
And I'm not talking long. Like, I think I did it 60 seconds, and I recorded. I think I recorded.
You don't want it long.
No,
that's actually,
no.
that alone is important.
I think I did 8 in a day, and I was just getting them out, and then they edited them, and they were up, and it was a great cost on those kind of things. And so, with your professional services, are you giving people that ability to not only read but watch and listen and experience the way that you're going to approach them? People feel a bit more connection with video, I feel.
But even if, let's say you're a bit of a nervous Nelly about being on camera, and you don't want to be that, you think you're going to actually affect, like us up here. You can go down the animated explainer route. And if you go down the animated explainer route, the sky's the limit, and you can really infuse your brand into your video, because you're using your brand colors. You're using your brand fonts. You're able to kind of create this whole world, and you can use rocket ships to show about accelerating your finance, and you can really just play with it.
We've done that.
And really visualize your service and create this whole story around it. And it's actually a really exciting way. And during during COVID and everything, it's a way you can jump onto this right away and actually get these services videos out there without ever having to leave the door or interact with other humans.
Sad, but it's
which is important to say at the moment. So yes, services are very important. And the other one I would say is really great, and you can get a lot of content, is educational videos.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, you have to remember, as we keep talking about, your service, what you do inside and out, and you think, oh, this is easy, you just do this and this. But to most people, they're utilizing your service because they have no clue how to do it. It's complex, it's confusing. They're worried about, how does this relate to me? What do I do? So if you look at pain points of what are the main questions I get asked all the time, what are things that usually are confusing people, and then you can just do a whole video series around that. And that's just constant content you can put on your blog, on your website, on your social media, on LinkedIn. And all of a sudden you're seen as a thought leader. You're seen as someone who cares about your audience, because you're helping educate them. And you're not necessarily selling in those videos, but by educating them and by giving that content, you're essentially doing a soft sell into
and it works.
your
People
services.
trust you more.
They trust you more, and we're all back to trust and credibility when it comes to services.
Yeah, look, I think you've nailed it, Ariel.
The two guys are like, we know we will move on if
Yeah.
everyone's good with video. So high quality video is something that will help. So the next one is the mistake, number 4, is over-reliance on traditional marketing. Now, we're living in a very digital age right now, and it's not to say that traditional marketing doesn't have its place, but are your brands, or does your brand embrace that kind of digital space? Now, I know that we all kind of work in this area, but Mike in particular, what would you like to say about the traditional versus digital sort of argument here?
I think if we look at the trends and what's going on at the moment, and what has been and what's going to continue, and I mean, we haven't seen the numbers really come through from a macro point of view with COVID, but what we're anticipating, and when you start looking at all the revenues from the big guys out there, they've skyrocketed. And that's because the digital scene is just continuing to grow. So for a lot of professional services now, it has been for the past few years, but even more so now, if you're not embracing digital, you're missing out on a huge chunk of advertising opportunities to generate more business. We see it very often that you know, businesses have been built off the referral basis early on. And so they've had these great relationships. They've got a lot of referral business from people that they know, who you know, like and trust them. But then as they sort of grow, you now need to get a bit more sort of structured around how you get business, and just having a referral. Well, it's what you guys were saying before, where you look at it. As you grow, you need that system to keep getting clients and business coming through the door, more than just what you can get through your own professional networks. And that's where we often find two things happen. Either one, businesses tend to go back to the traditional channels and think, okay, well, what about all this print collateral and things that I put together, which is not a bad thing, by the way.
Yeah,
it comes
traditional has a space.
It does, absolutely. And from the chart, which everyone will see once the slides go out, is that it's not that traditional is kind of dropping off and digital's taking over.
It's just not growing.
Exactly. So traditional is kind of continuing where it is, but then digital is obviously where the growth in advertising, and advertising is growing. It's a very competitive world out there.
It's evolving too.
It's evolving.
Absolutely. But if you think about business and sort of the competition, what's going on, and how easy it is now for people to get into business, especially around a lot of professional services, where a lot of it's knowledge-based. It's not the actual infrastructure for the business. It's just what we have in our heads. And so it's not hard for someone to sort of jump out and go it alone. And so with that, you've got to have really strong, solid advertising campaigns and stuff that are generating that business constantly. And that's kind of the competitive edge that occurs when you've got that system set up to keep getting business. New people can come in, and they'll come and then they'll go. You know, that's the I guess part of the whole attrition rates that we see in business, where, you know, 3 years, 5 years, people are in it, they're trying, and unless they start building systems around their marketing and generating leads, it's just not sustainable, and so then they sort of drop off. And so those really good, solid businesses and the ones that are growing are building good quality, ideally, digital campaigns.
And
I think
sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was just saying, like, I think everyone that's probably listening can relate to this. I think that was a really good point, is that if we're, as professional services, it's not hard for competitors. There's low barriers of entry. And so having this digital space working for you as you grow will kind of future-proof you. And if you're not doing this is really important insight. Sorry, Ariel, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say how, you know, mostly if you're a small business or a medium business, being agile and really just jumping into digital and really playing off of that and saying, what platforms fit that audience member that I said, and how can I utilize that? And it's a really exciting time.
Oh, it is.
Because you can compete against the big companies. It's not back in the day where you're paying huge monies for a TVC and you have to put all this advertising behind this one 30-second ad. Now you have, you know, Facebook, you have YouTube.
You use AI.
You can use AI. You can use so many different things that is accessible to everyone. And yes, that makes it a little bit more competitive, but that also means you can get out there as well. And if you're focusing on all the messages we've said about creating that personality and that niche and really making yourself unique, you will stand out by having consistent, you know, advertising on this digital space.
But I also think, so a lot of professional services businesses do get a lot of business from referrals. But I think what you've got to recognise now as a professional service provider is that whilst your potential customer might have received a fantastic referral from you, if you believe that they haven't clicked before they've picked up the phone and checked out your website, checked out your social media, if you really believe that they haven't done their own due diligence, then I think, you know, you will probably struggle to really grow.
They call it the digital interview.
Yeah, it is. It is. And people are getting more and more savvy like that. And they do check and they do their due diligence. There's nothing better than having both camps covered.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than getting an awesome referral, preferably digital, preferably video, but backed up by amazing online presence.
Yeah.
And then, you know, a whole new, doesn't have to be new, but a whole marketing arm that's working for you in the digital space that has that consistent tone of voice.
Yeah, and think about like how if you're a professional service business, think about how you as a customer do your search. So like remove yourself from your industry and think about how you approach other professional services. You do exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
Like as in when you're going to hire a real estate agent, for example, right? You would never just go to the first one and go, see what happens,
fine,
right?
yeah.
You search everywhere. You look at their reviews, their videos, their previous listings, right? All of that you do. But then unfortunately when we get into our businesses, we think, no, people just look us up. Or like people just refer us and they'll go with us. And like Kristen was saying, everyone is doing that diligence, that digital interview before they call you. And that's
do you think a problem, and I've suffered from this ourselves, of being time poor, is that we go, well, I'm going to be on all the different platforms, and you set yourself up and you put a few posts, and then you just let it lie.
I don't do that.
Well, you don't do that. Chris is everywhere. Chris is everywhere. But this is a problem, and it is important to have a content strategy in place because, again, I know I keep going to this, but trust is so important. And if you're not consistently putting it out, and it doesn't have to be all the time, you can be once a fortnight, right? But just making sure you're constantly keeping up with that, because if you just throw a few posts, get really excited for a couple weeks, and then you don't touch it for months, people are going to go and go, is this company still is this company still even open? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
It almost looks worse when it just is dead than when you don't have anything. So it's important once you create that to kind of create that content strategy. And you can do everything in a day. Just one day, sit down and make 5 different posts, and that can keep you going for a while. But consistency is so important when it comes to this.
Good with traditional versus digital?
I was going to say, well, that being said, I guess this is as we get kind of to the real sort of meat of the digital side of things, and what are the really big benefits out of going digital and really embracing that as a marketing channel. Some of the things that we love so much is, we talked earlier about audience, and that's where digital works really well compared to a lot of other traditional advertising mediums, where you kind of put this sort of blank canvas or this broad marketing activities that target everyone. If you look at billboards on the side of the road, for instance, it's like anyone going past. Well, of that, how big's your actual customer base or potential people to use your products or your services? It's so small, and yet you're spending to get in front of all of those eyeballs. Whereas when we look at the digital side of things, if it's social media, we can profile people based on demographics, psychographics, and we can sort of target and refine those audiences that we want to speak to. If we look at it even from a geographic aspect, we can kind of really refine the audience. On search, we can do the same thing. We can look at it from a geographic point of view. We can look at specific keywords. So it's not just I'm looking for a lawyer, but I'm looking for a divorce lawyer. Family lawyer, those sorts of things. You just refine it that little bit, and you can go further again. We say, look, I'm looking for a divorce lawyer in Hunters Hill. So you can get really refined in exactly who we're trying to target. And that means that when you look at the other benefit of a digital, that cost of acquisition.
Exactly.
When you get really specific around the type of audience you're looking for, and you're only paying for that, they're most likely to convert. Because they realize, and as your website, your landing page speaks specifically to that audience, when they hit the site, they go, I'm in the right spot. These are the people that can absolutely help me. And so then they're gonna convert into a lead. And so your cost of acquisition drops dramatically because we're appealing to less people and
your cost per click might be up a bit, but as you say, the important metric is the cost per acquisition. So it's how many of those, because there's no point having 1,000 clicks if one of them then converts, because that cost per acquisition is pretty significant. But if you're getting right down to numbers where you've got a small number of people that when they're clicking through, they're actually going all the way through and they're contacting you and you're acquiring them.
It can be
utopia.
Absolutely. Well, it can be the difference. It's the make or break between a campaign working or not working. And it also means that when you look at all your competition, the better refined it is and the better the conversion rates, you're right. You can spend more on that cost per click and still be more profitable than your competition. And that's where the real magic is. So we can run, we run ad campaigns for lawyers where it's $30, $40 a click. That's per click. Hang on a second, how are we going to make money out of that? That hurts. But if you look at it from a landing page, like a traditional landing page or a common sort of generic one, you might see a sort of a 5% conversion rate. That's 1 in 20. So you look at your cost per click at $30 and then multiply that by 20. You're like, okay, right, I'm spending $600 here on acquiring one inquiry.
Yeah.
And you go, that hurts.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Whereas if I was to then say, well, actually, instead of spending, trying to go after that many people, if I had a better converting landing page where I can convert, let's say, 1 in 6, there's $180 to pick up a new lead. Well, that's actually, you know what? I can afford to do this. And in fact, I can afford to spend $40 per click. Yeah. And guess what? My competition can't.
Yeah.
And so now I'm ahead of the competition.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty in terms of digital, because you get that refinement. It's not like, oh, I just put 10 grand in and then I'll run a newspaper ad for the weekend. I hope that it works. No, you've got this thing running all the time. You've got people specifically looking for a key service.
And you're talking about the setup. What I find really exciting, mostly when you're putting your own money in it, you're putting your business's money into it, is that the quick, agile A and B testing, right? So if you're putting up a billboard, you're like, hope this works because it's there for a month, right? It's stuck there. Oh, didn't realize that pole was covering it, But with digital, you can put up A and B testing and you go, this one's not working. And instantly the money goes towards, B. And you can see exactly what's happening and change and shift your costs to fix what's actually showing you because of the reporting that's coming out. The such smart reporting. You're seeing exactly who's clicking and what's happening. And you can be so quick about updating that and utilizing your money to the best of its ability.
Absolutely spot on. That's one of the things that we love. In any campaign that we sort of run, we will absolutely run multiple campaigns, multiple ad groups, multiple ads. And while we use our best marketing knowledge about scientifically what would work, is it's that balance of art and science in marketing. Even when you sort of know, okay, that ticks all of the boxes theoretically. It's not until you put it out into the marketplace that you realize between 2 or 3 different ads, all of a sudden it skews one particular way, and that's great. And the joys with digital is we can test that and know that that's working versus traditional ones where you go, I've just got to pick which one I think is going to be the right ad, go out there and hope that works. And it's amazing just how much you see the skew where one ad will perform at double, triple the other ad.
No reason.
And that could just be different font. It could be different. It could be different. It could be a different tagline, and that's why we're talking about how essential these small things are. Because when we're talking about this one moment where they're looking at this, they're looking at that one bit of content, that one image or video that's playing behind, the colors and the font, and that's how they're deciding. Am I going to click on this? Is this someone I want to learn more about? It's based on that second they're looking at that as they're scrolling through or seeing something. So,
Good? Very good. Okay, so the 5th mistake is inconsistent messaging across all channels. And many brands are actually guilty of this. And so what I would say as a copywriter, from the copywriter perspective, is making sure that what you're saying across all of your channels, because a lot of brands today are omni-channel marketing, where we're using Facebook and LinkedIn and Google My Business and our website and all these platforms, is making sure that everything is consistent in the way that you present yourself. Because it's the biggest failure that you'll get as a brand, as a professional services brand, is when people see one thing and then they see another thing and they go, is that the same brand? And then you lose them. And it's so detrimental because you can do so much work trying to get your website right or your socials, and then it takes one post and it's like, is this the same brand? And we all face this.
And we've talked about it. It takes so much longer to get somebody back than to win them in the first place.
You set up your brand, you do all these great things, and then it takes one mistake, and we've all seen it. And so it's really important. And as the research has shown, is that 33% revenue increase attributed to brand consistency. But it's also another interesting thing I found from this was that inconsistent branding doesn't just impact your customers; it impacts your employees' morale as well. This is something that I think professional services don't take into account, is that it's is looking at, it's not just how you're portraying it to your brand, it's also how you are, like, to your external customers. It's what you want your internal customers to think. Because if they can't understand your brand, how are they supposed to portray it to an external audience? And so this is what we're dealing with here.
Well, you're talking about a people business, aren't you? So, I mean, like consistency. I mean, for us, without consistency, you don't have trust. And if you don't have trust, your ability to be, I come back to it, unique, aligned and engaged, you've got no chance. So really for us, it's about ensuring that there's consistency with the way that you're putting your messaging out there, but it's internal and external. Of course, the most important people to your business are your customers. If you're a professional services business, the second most important people to you are your people. And if you send inconsistent internal messages or external messages about your brand, particularly your tone of voice, then you're breaking that trust, and you've really got to be aware of it. It's key, absolutely key.
I might just keep moving, is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. The sixth mistake.
This one's probably the hardest one to talk through because it's quite
similar
visual.
Branding.
So
The slides obviously aren't here, but like the similar branding is a very I think we did cover it earlier on in the piece as well. Is that just having looking like all your competitors can be the biggest backstep that you can make. And like Kristen's probably the best one to talk about this.
Look, absolutely. The slides, when you get them, we've actually done a really simple visual on from the law survey. We were able to just mock up what the average legal brand looked like, and it's, as we mentioned before, was blue, black, grey, white. It had Baskerville font, but it was a mixed font for its web page, and there was mixed tone of voice. So there was we're the legal brand for you, but quick, buy now.
You're going to get a giggle when you actually look at it. You're going to see it and go, I've seen this before. And it's a complete mock-up. It's not anyone's actual website. But when you see this, you're going to say, I've seen this brand. Because they've been so
and it's so the same. It's very much what came across to us was just the sameness of it, which was a huge opportunity for that professional services stream in law firms, but it's also the same across many. Look, what we'll do in terms of that, Chris, I think when we put the slide deck out, we'll put a couple of other slides in there to explain that, so that people can see how, because we've given you two examples of how actually just with a little bit of thought, a little bit of understanding of who your customer base is, what sectors you want to serve, what your values are as a business, you can really quickly and effectively differentiate. And it touches on all the aspects that we talked about in terms of the colours that you might use, the fonts you might use, the brand imagery, the tone that you adopt, everything down from. I mean, I love the mock-up that we did of the generic brand, where the imagery of what you've got, and you see it all the time. It's a stock image of
a city,
a cityscape, somebody sitting in an office, looking out a window, contemplating. I have no idea what they're contemplating. I don't even know whether they're the professional or whether they're the customer or whether they're happy at the service they've just received or whether they're not sure about what's going to come next. So
this is where consistency is not a good thing.
But not consistency with your competitors.
Consistency with your competitors.
You want to be consistent with your own brand, and so adding that touch of colour. And I know.
Well, let's just talk about one of them. You can.
Well, I mean, my brand, right? So what I find is in my industry is a lot of copywriters all look the same. We're professional services like any other. And with my brand, I use the colour orange, and a vibrant orange. And I worked with fonts
everywhere.
And it's everywhere. and it goes from an orange to a light pink, and that alone makes me extremely distinct. Yes. And what it is having the boldness that we talked about and the courage earlier on to be distinct and stand out.
It's not just about using a loud color, though. It's because that fits your brand.
It fits my personality.
It fits Chris's personality,
yes.
It fits his brand, and it fits what he's putting out there. So I think it's important that, and when you'll see these examples, one of them using more of a construction-based lawyer, it's not always about, having popping. It's more about it just...
Suitability.
Yeah. So.
And like the family lawyers one. The
green, the new growth, turning over a new leaf. And we've actually used some imagery there where we've got family imagery for even though that's a lawyer that's a divorce lawyer or wills and estates, because what we're trying to convey with the imagery of happiness is what's the outcome? Yeah. What's at the end of this journey? Yeah. Or the experience that you'll feel at the end of this journey is that life goes on and I will have my next happy moment, and this professional service is the one that's going to get there with me and they understand what I need today.
Yeah. And would you pick that generic blue, black, gray one that has a man staring out at a cityscape, or would you pick the one
People are
that's
thinking, oh my gosh, that's me.
sorry, or would you pick the one that's, you know, green and showing what you could become if this journey turns out all right, and how this service is going to help you? Your mind instantly in that second that we talked about, like the book Bling, it's going to see that and go, oh, they get where I want, who I am, and they get me,
And they remember you.
and yeah.
And I think the last challenge, before we'll take a few questions, I know they're coming through, is not reaching out to for professional assistance. So the biggest challenge and the biggest trap that professional service brands fall into is that they've been doing it for so long and they get into the same repetitive behaviors, and then all their competitors are doing it as well, and then the whole industry does it and no one can see a way out.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the times it's about reaching out for an external company, marketing agency, etc., like what we do, is because getting out and collaborating with another brand is just a refreshing perspective. I mean, we've all worked with professional services where like a lawyer's approached me and said, is this right? And it's just that external perspective and that bit of freshness gets you, like that, I talked about that case study with the interior designer and the interior decorator, is they had never thought about what comes so easily to me.
Yep.
And I would probably be the same if I used their service.
Well, likewise,
right?
I'm just an interior designer, and
I
their
like,
perception, where I articulate what I'm looking for, but their perception and the way that they see my home environment is completely
100%.
different. And so using the experts, as you say, is absolutely, it helps you on that journey that you've got to go through to really understand who your customer is, what need are you solving, what's your value proposition, and then how do I convey that to the audience.
I mean, we understand the importance of that. We reach out to each other and to other individuals all the time saying, how is this being perceived? What are you getting from this? What feelings are getting emoted from this, and having that constant check-in, because utilizing someone, you understand your company, you understand it inside and out, but we understand our craft, and we're able to take what you know and love and are invested in with your company and really help churn that out into something that your audience will get and love and have that same passion that you do. And I think that's what's important, is that collaboration, is that truly collaborative approach towards it.
Because working together will get you to a nice area.
Yeah, and look, and I think one thing that we've talked about in the past, and we always say as a panel, is there is a professional service out there for you and your business, regardless of whether you're at startup or whether you're at a very mature business, high growth, something, or a business that's just looking for the next accretive step. There are many different service providers out there. If you take the time to look, you will find one that suits your business. And please just ensure that their branding actually speaks to you as an audience.
Well, yes, that's right, because you've got to qualify them too. There's a good question that came through, and it says, what are our opinions on vanity metrics and clickbait, and how do we tackle that? Well, I'll tackle the clickbait, and then I'll go. So as a writer, we'll do the vanity metrics. So clickbait is the most dangerous thing your brand can do. The reason why is simple. One is when you have a clickbait title, you set a promise, and then your content doesn't deliver. And that is more damaging to your brand than anything else. So never do clickbait, okay? Vanity metrics, Mike, do you want to touch on that? Oh, sorry, for anyone who doesn't understand vanity metrics, it's like vanity metrics at the top level. The general likes, the general impressions, and then there's the deeper metrics. Sorry, Mike.
Well, yes, and that's all sort of based on the previous or past ways that we could measure marketing, right? You'd say, okay, well, if I want to advertise on the radio, I'm looking at what's the audience size, and so I'm going to broadcast out to 300,000 people. And so you're looking at those vanity metrics to sort of say and then of that, I can then sort of derive that I might be able to target and pick up a few percentage points out of that. In digital, there's, people still have this tendency to sort of think, oh, I got X number of impressions to my website. I've got, 1,000 people coming along. How awesome is this? Yeah. Okay, that's nice, great job, but are they the right, right audience? Is it the right people coming through to your site? Ultimately, at the end of the day, it comes down to, are they converting? So are we actually seeing the inquiries, whether it's phone calls, whether it's emails, whether it's filling in the form? Are they taking that next step? And so it's nice to know that you've got this audience that you're appealing to, and that vanity metric side of things, and that goes for social and stuff as well, where you look at the amount of impressions and even engagements. Okay, that's nice. That shows that you've got something of interest. But is it actually ultimately converting into a sale? And if it is, well, great. That's fine. But really, that's the place where we start with first, is looking at what's actually converting, and then work back and then say, hey, are these numbers what we're expecting to see, or should we be getting more?
Yeah. We've kind of covered that question. Is there any other question oh, we're good. Anyone have any other questions before we finish up?
Yeah.
I know that we're at 7:30 right now. We've just made it. If there's no more questions, thank you very much. We'll sign off.
Yes, thank you.
So my name is Christopher Melotti from Melotti Media Copywriting and Message Marketing Bureau, and we look after all your writing and content needs.
Ariel Bowers from Two Giraffes. We are the full-service video production and animation studio.
Kristen Hancock from Swatch Branding Design Studio, and we create profound brands for business services.
And I'm Mike Sandys from Oddball Marketing. We're an action-oriented marketing agency.
And we're all really happy to, if you want to reach out from LinkedIn and chat to us about anything. If you can't tell, we all love to chat. So if you come up with any questions later on, or once you get the slides, if you want to start a conversation about any of that in your brand, feel free to reach out to us.